Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery. Thank you, first and foremost, for being so patient with me over the course of the last 4 weeks, where I have either been out of town or had a personal reason why I couldn't actually show up here and be productive and proactive in the space. However, I also want to thank you for watching the replays, whether they were a repeat for you or a first time watching it. I really appreciate everybody's engagement in doing so, because it's really important to me, as well as to my new special guest, Jordan, that that we're here for you and that we're bringing to you pertinent information, as well as tips, tactics, skill sets, ideas, thoughts, opinions, I don't know, broadening the whole perspective around what addiction and recovery really are, what they look like, what they feel like, and how the process actually transpires in a person's life. So with no further ado, I think I'd really like to start out by introducing Jordan. Jordan and I met quite some time ago through LinkedIn, and we got to going into some conversations, and I was so extremely impressed by her that we ended up cultivating and creating a beautiful space and relationship, friendship, and a professional involvement in each other's life, to where now Jordan is actually a Turning Leafs affiliate and is out there and supporting and advocating for people looking for the right journey for them. And I think, Jordan brings so amazing things to the table that we don't often see. And that is this wonderful perspective around how much the entire family has to experience the process, how much our spirituality plays a role in how well we are experiencing living, and how important it is that each person is able to define what their family unit looks like, how it operates, but also how their spirituality speaks to them, right? So that almost sounds like two separate conversations, but I believe that they are a unit, right? That when we're on a journey, we have that gift that says you get to recreate, redefine, restructure, and re-engage in your family and your spirituality in a way that suits you. That often in childhood we are led to believe, or it's been illustrated to us to believe, that it has to fit in some box, or it has to follow the thoughts, opinions, and beliefs of, say, your elders or other people in your life. And we know this to not be true because of the journeys that we've walked ourselves and the education that we've received. So with no further ado, this is Jordan. And Jordan, thank you so much for coming, especially on short notice. I totally appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Tricia. Anything for you.
Oh, you're amazing. You are amazing. So, I just shared really brief and broadly, how I see you and how I really connect with you, and where I think that you really bring something super fresh and unique, especially for a broader, what do I want to say, age group even, right? Because, that's one of the things that impressed me so much, was just being so young, so profound about you.
Thank you.
So, why don't you, I don't know, within your comfort or within whatever's speaking to you in the moment, let's let people hear you.
Okay. Yeah. About me, definitely a lot to unravel. Try and keep it concise and compact, though. yeah, so I come from various cultures. My mom's Guatemalan, my dad is African American. Both have their own struggles, trials, tribulations attached to those, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love my family. We've been through it all, anything you name it, when it comes to recovery, whether it be addiction, deaths, mental illness, which addiction falls under, depression. Like, it's just, we've gone through our fair share, that's for sure. And then being also first generation to get my education, to get my degree, that's exciting, nerve-wracking, frustrating, stressful, all in and of itself. So that was fun. And then just unpacking the cultural beliefs and norms that have been so instilled and ingrained on both sides of my family, unlearning negative behaviors, unlearning negative habits. That's just all, like, it's a continuous process that I think that right now we're really at the pinnacle point of, because for both sides, I think our go-to is to just brush things under the rug and not really pay attention to our struggles or the things that are hurting us, what we're going through. We kind of we don't talk about it. It's not a conversation that's normal on either side of the family. It's like we deal with it by ourselves, usually as best as we can, and we continue to move on. We continue to provide for our family. We continue to get up and go to work the next day and just pull it up, by the bootstraps or whatever that slogan is, and we just keep it pushing. So it's nice to get different perspectives through turning leaves and figure out, like, what the bad habits are, bad habits in general that need reconstructuring, and unlearning those behaviors so we can learn positive ones to replace them with. So
I love that. And just even to put a little pin in that, right? Because I mean, I have children that are your age, right? And so it's a generational thing as well. And it's really eye-opening, right? Because, being the age that I am, right? When I was raising the kids, it was, based on what I knew, but then as an adult and through my education and through my own recovery journeys, realizing all of these amazing new perspectives, new outlooks, new approaches to experiencing living, because this is a frustrating world, but, being able to then go back to, my now adult children, and even be able to, introduce that, so we're not just in a journey for ourselves, but when we have a family unit and conditioned or embedded or generational, ways of being, it can be a challenge. It can also almost be frustrating when you're trying to introduce a concept or an idea or a softer approach, whatever it might be, to something that's that ingrained. Like, there's nothing wrong with this, mom, dad, but I've learned a better way, like where we don't have to change it, but we get to improve upon it, or we get to, make it, less heavy or less secretive, or, all of these things, because mental health I'm still so extremely new that we get to talk about it like this, live, streaming on Facebook, sharing it on YouTube, sending it to our email contacts, whatever it is, right? Being able to say, look, you know what? A lot of people in the world, I would venture to say that anybody that's lived for any period of time has experienced, a loved one dying, or, even just watching the news, like, how sad that this young woman was, found no longer living, and it's being deemed a homicide, right? Like, so these are things that, so everybody, even the young ones, like, we have to, get so much more transparent so that we can be talking about mental health, whether that be, from the criminally minded, or from the, emotionally distraught. And, so we get to talk about these things,
right,
so much more openly, and really step into a space where we get to lead by the example of saying, society operates from the stance of a judger at such a high level that if we would all, I think, just kind of take a step back and learn how to be more of a learner, right? Through the power of inquiry, through just observation, through acceptance, through whatever, because we all want our own lives to look, feel, and be however we want them to. So why is it so difficult on a society level to allow that for everybody else? And there's just so much pressure to perform. And that is found so deeply embedded inside of families. And it's almost like the hardest one to kind of get past, because we feel this pressure to perform or outperform or compare ourselves.
Right. No, 100%. And I think that touching up on multiple amazing points that you made that are so valid and true, especially right now, like it's hard when you have something, behaviors or routines or traits that are so ingrained in the family unit, and you don't realize, your actions and the way that you communicate, it affects generations on top of generations on top of generations. Like it goes on. And then, 20 years later, we're still reaping the consequences of something that happened, eons ago, because we never really fully addressed it and we never really tackled it and got through it. We just swept it under the rug and we didn't confront it. And so it's just not a healthy way, I feel, of going about life in general, let alone the family unit, and being supportive of one another. I don't know how we can be supportive if we don't tackle the things that are detrimental to us, hands-on. And it is scary. For me, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, it learn by doing is really important, we're scared, we're nervous, we don't know, if we want to step up to the plate to be the person that changes and breaks down all of these traditions and routines that are so ingrained. And then me being like a younger cousin, it's like, it's not my place, it's not my position, but somebody eventually has to be the one that's like, this hasn't been beneficial for us, the way that we've been going about things. Let's try something new, and if this doesn't work out, then we learn by doing something else. And if that doesn't work out, we learn by doing something else. But it takes initiative and it takes a starting point and it takes somebody to just finally step up.
Oh my gosh, yes, because the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, right? So if we're not utilizing, so to bring in other tools that we use in our recovery process, right? What went well? Why? How can I capitalize on it? What didn't work as well as I had hoped? How can I change, shift, morph, add, adjust, whatever, and make it better going forward? What didn't work at all? Let's look at why it didn't work at all. Throw that idea in the trash and start over from scratch, right? Like that self-observation, that what we call night hygiene that I use all day long, or our core non-physical feeling check-in, right? Like right here, right now, in this moment, I feel irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, irritated, intrigued, inspired, elated. Why? What's driving it? Right? How much of it is about something outside of me and how much of it's coming from within? Mm-hmm. What can I do to either improve this going forward, or better yet, how can I keep this momentum, or what do I need to do completely different, right? Like, so these ways of self-evaluation, self-observation, and it's not just our personal self, although it always has to start there, because we can only control our own perception and our own perspective. If we don't like how we see something, we get to choose. But then also observing how others, right? Because if you aren't willing to look at how somebody's face changes when you're speaking to them, how their body language changes when you're interacting with them, or how they are just in general presenting themselves. One of my biggest frustrations is when, somebody passes due to suicide, and everybody acts so shocked and so surprised. And you go, who's paying attention? Who's taken the time to learn how to actually observe, and who's taken the time to inquire for deeper understanding when they know somebody's not in the right headspace because of their attitude, their demeanor, or whatever? Who's taken the time to say, I can see, I can feel, I can sense that something's, not meshing for you, not jiving for you, that's just hurting you, or, right? Like insert an adjective.
Right.
And I can see this or feel it, or, just I'm sensing something, help me understand what's going on. I might not be able to fix it, but I just want, it's a way of showing people like, hey, I'm here. I'm not, this isn't just a one-sided relationship, or, it's not superficial, it's not shallow.
Yeah.
And I just often wonder, like, how does a kid sit in a classroom month after month after month and a teacher not pick up on something? Anyway, I could go off on this one, right? Because, and the same with substance abuse, right? So you go, there is an easily identifiable chronological pathway that is easily identifiable when somebody has developed a negative attachment to a substance. I don't care if that's sugar, caffeine, alcohol, methamphetamine, heroin, whatever, pain pills. There are very specific attitudes and demeanors that start to happen. And it's more than just, pulling back and isolating, although that is one, but it's all in action and reaction and all of the things where if we're truly interested and present, and we're in an environment where there's multiple people, you can actually, if you're present, sense a lot of these things, and then we don't miss so much.
Right. No, 100%. And I think that just speaking on my family's behalf, some anecdotal evidence, I love my family. I think they're amazing people. They really do lead by examples in different sectors that they're involved in. But I think when it comes to recovery, when it comes to mental illness, when it comes to addiction, when it comes to alcohol abuse, what have you, we just don't address it. We don't address it. It's the elephant in the room. We don't talk about it. And we instead dive head first into something else to completely and totally distract us. So I lost a cousin to addiction last year. My aunt, love her, God bless her soul, she immediately dove headfirst into, how can I help my community? How can I donate? How can I give back? How can I help the homeless population? Let me get involved in this organization. Let me get involved in that organization. And from the outside looking in, obviously, I don't know her mind. I don't know, where she's coming from. But the outside looking in, I feel like, well, what about you?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Like, how are you? But we, as a family, it's just not. We don't do that. We don't sit down at the dinner table and discuss, like, what are you feeling? Stop sign. Let's take a deep breath. How are you? What are your thoughts going on? It's never been that way. And with my cousin attempted suicide in 2018. The lack of oxygen to his brain left him with the inability to communicate or talk or be mobile. And so now that's a consistent process that we're dealing with. And on that side of the family, very altruistic, same thing. My uncle, extremely selfless person, immediately started a nonprofit organization to help other youths and teens who might be experiencing some depression or just need a platform to speak out. But again, I'm like, what's going on with you? How can we as a family support you? And I don't know how to start that, because again, it's like somebody needs to be the point. Somebody needs to be the lead and take the initiative. And because I'm just the niece, and because I'm just the sister and the younger cousin, it feels so out of my comfort zone. I'm like, I don't know how to even address that or even start that process, and Turning Leaves gives so much advice and so many steps to take to, okay, let's start here, instead of me getting overwhelmed about like all the various different, like maybe we need to be more involved in church or maybe this, but realistically, it takes that initiative. Turning Leaves helps set a great foundation and platform, as a starting point. So these are the things that I'm learning right now as I transition to like a full.
We're getting there.
Yeah. So that I can incorporate them in my life, because I can see firsthand, how detrimental past routines can be when there's no change in that. You do the same thing over and over again, you expect different results. It doesn't make any sense. Let's try something else. And I want to be involved in a family where anybody can just come and talk to me and vent to me. And it's like, okay, how can we support each other, instead of let's just not acknowledge it. Let's just pretend it's not, let's just try to act normal, but it's awkward. I don't think personally that's beneficial. I don't see that being, I think that there can be more. I think there's more work that could be done, more grounding. But again, it starts with somebody saying, okay, enough.
Right. Well, it starts with, reducing that barrier that says, I have a fear of being judged. I have a fear of being vulnerable. Right. And I have a fear of being seen as weak. I have to perform to the level of what my stature is within the unit. Right. So, because I hear you talking about aunts, uncles, right? Elders, and I'm just, and you know what? You're not just anything. You are a woman who is studying something that is very important and have a lot to offer to people that don't know otherwise. And it becomes more of an introduction, right? It becomes more of an introduction to, I may not be your first choice of somebody to come and talk to, but I am going to continue to check in on your health and well-being, because your emotional health and well-being, because it's important to me, and it's important to me that anybody that's in my life feels that there can be a level of transparency and to know, trust that I'm not going to go and share with anybody else unless it's a group conversation and that person starts it on their own. Right? Like, it's almost like that therapeutic, what comes to the room stays in the room, kind of agreement where, you're creating that trust and that rapport. You're just building that with people who know who you are, but they don't know you in an adult fashion. Right. So we have this whole power differential, and it can be a very difficult shift for aunts, uncles, moms, dads to begin having an adult relationship. Right. with the people in their lives that, were once children. Right. And so it's just a transitional phase, and you are bringing a new role to the family. Right. Which will take time to cultivate, to develop that trust, that rapport, that respect, but eventually will translate into, we're having this issue, right? Like, they may not come to you for therapeutic intervention or resolve, because generally, we don't work within our own family because it kind of backfires on us. But there are some cultures, some family units, some family systems that do operate better that way. They're so enmeshed. I mean, I know so many that they are so close that they don't. What they do is they sit down Sunday dinner and they're talking about anything and everything, whether it's an issue at work or an issue with each other. And they do that. And it's beautiful when you get there, right? You have to cultivate it. It has to be born, right? So don't discount yourself, my friends. You have a very big aspiration that is very commendable. And also, your family, I think, they've got a good start on everything that I'm hearing. Like, it's great. Yes, let's help somebody else, because we can't fix our issue, right? That situation's already happened. It's come and gone. But what we can do is try to give back and help for future people, which is amazing, right? But some of the things that those future people need is to know about their emotional recovery journey, right? So maybe we can get them to add that in, and then they can truly be a complete support. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like full entire circle. And I agree 100% that, you know, not only would it benefit them, but who knows how many people can benefit from it, you know, because if you're trying to push yourself to help others, but you're still kind of half broken yourself, or you're still kind of like dealing with turmoil on the inside, like whether you want it to or not, it's gonna translate. That energy is gonna come off, and people are gonna take that in. They're gonna perceive you in a different way than you think that you're actually being perceived. So it matters. I definitely think it matters. And yeah, I intend to help make that first step. I tend to be the one to start checking in, because we are the next generation. So I'm going to be the next aunt, and, you know, there's going to be the next uncles, there's going to be the next nieces and nephews. And do we want the same patterns for them? Do we want the same routines? I personally don't. I think that it can be more constructive. I think that it can be a closer bond. I think that it can be more supportive. So, but it starts with us.
It does. And I love this, because you know, so often we don't take the opportunities inside of our family unit, right? Because we don't. We're siblings, we're cousins, or whatever, and we just don't. But I love that you're putting yourself in that position as an aunt, right? To be able to, you know, talk openly about, you know, the dangers of experimentation, right? The dangers of having improper dietary practices, you know, all the things like, and you get to come at it from lived experience combined with education, right? And training, and you get to offer this translation into these younger minds, like, and lead by that example. And then they're going to feel so much more comfortable going to Auntie Jordan, right? And you're going to be able to say to their parents, your siblings, like, hey, I want to have this relationship, because your kids are going to want to come to you. So please let me be that for them. Right? You know, so that we don't have the same issues that we had in our generation, in their generation. Let's give them that space. But in that same regard, I'm only going to come to you with major concerns. Like, I'm not going to come with you with every little thing they talk to me about. There's got to be some anonymity if you know, we want it to be successful. Kind of thing. I don't know, without going into a whole coaching space and going, let's do this, you know. But I think this is so inspirational. So for anybody that is listening, that is either a mom, an aunt, a cousin, a friend, a sibling, whatever you are, like, you know, I think, you know, if we start taking that approach of, I want to have my eyes wide open, right? I want to learn how to observe. You know, it can be just that easy. Like, hey, I just want to know how to observe other people, so I know the warning signs of whatever it might be, right? Depression, anxiety, eating disorders, you know, whatever. I just want to know how to observe my loved ones, so that can be a good support. Like, there's options, right? Like, Jordan's living proof, I'm living proof that there are ways to learn how to be that intuitive, right? And to cultivate that level of emotional intelligence that innately doesn't come with being born. And that's not to say you have to want to have a degree in it, but just to be an effective member of the family, that you know, shows up and is present. But, you know, I also just think, you know, by coming here and being open shows that, you know, we don't have to hide. We don't have to put on a face. We don't have to create some grand illusion. We can be raw. We can be real. I mean, coming here and saying, you know what, I want to be the change inside of my already wonderful family, right? Because I see an opportunity for us to be even better.
And Tricia, I have to say that honestly, it's been a journey to get to where I am today, because obviously I'm going to learn from my predecessors. I'm going to learn from my parents. And so I also, when I would struggle, would not I wouldn't share it with anybody, and I would keep that to myself. I wouldn't share my family problems. Like, nobody knew about our financial status. Like, how dare I? Like, I just figure it out and keep it to myself. But I would say that definitely, my faith, church, turning leaves, and then just like good supportive friends have gotten me to the place where I am now. And I'm still working on it. I'm still cultivating. It's a never ending process, self-growth, your journey. But I wouldn't be here right now where I am today if it weren't for those top three: supportive friends, turning leaves, and my faith. Like, realistically, I would still be repeating the same patterns. So it's just, it's knowing that this is a journey and that it's going to take active, intentional, hard work, but it's so beneficial and so worth it, especially if you can extend everything that you've learned and everything that you've processed, to your family, to your loved ones, and then it can help them, with whatever recovery journey that they're going through personally, and then they can help others. It's a domino effect, but it needs to start somewhere. So I'm so grateful for my personal resources that have gotten me to the place where I am today, because now I am more transparent. Now I am more willing to accept it's okay to hurt. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to recover from something traumatic. Like, that's the whole point. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for those. And I think that it's such a great transitioning time for other people to kind of jump on this movement, because it just, the benefits, like, they just speak for themselves.
And I love that. I love everything that you say, but I love that you have brought highlight to that, because it is no short or no small thing.
Yeah.
No small thing. You can identify your top three things that have gotten you where you are. I am constantly asking people, what was your outcome from this, right? Like, how did you come to this conclusion? How did you get there? And a lot of times people can't answer it, which also means they can't replicate it or duplicate it in a similar situation, right? So the next time they have something that's troubling or derailing or hard or uncomfortable, they're starting over from scratch all the time, instead of just add, edit, delete, right, make it work over here, right? So this is why life gets so hard for so many people. I mean, I talk to folks, they're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm super strong. I'm super independent. I have a very good sense of self-worth, but I can't let go of the heavy bag of all of my past, all of those traumatic things that have happened to me. And in that, I can't give up my conditioned way of self-soothing or numbing, right? Okay, right. So we can insert alcohol or shopping or ice cream or whatever it is that you're using as that self-soothing tactic that you can't let go, even though you have this amazing sense of self-worth and everybody sees you as super confident. You got this big bag of past trauma that you don't know how to put down, and they come to me and they're like, I'm completely baffled. Like, I don't know how you can even help me, because my self-esteem is where it needs to be. And it truly sometimes has to do with that, and sometimes it doesn't. Everybody is on their own unique journey. And the cool thing is skill sets and tactics, the right ones, right? Those evidence-based practices that come with skill sets and tactics, when you know how to add, edit, delete, and incorporate them into your life as an effective tool or method, instead of trying to take somebody else's method that worked well for them and put your life in it. And it kind of sounds a little bit odd. It's a little bit difficult for people to understand. But if you read a self-help book and nobody helps you learn how to incorporate it into your life, all you've done is read a self-help book and then sit there and wonder, well, why did this person get so much out of it? Why, right? And sometimes because it more directly fit into their life, or they have some concept of how to incorporate it. But it's not because they just all of a sudden started living somebody else's way and it worked out great. And so I mean, it's the reasons why Turning Leaves only comes with coaching. Like, you don't get to come do the program and have no interaction, because we got to make sure that you're at least interpreting it or taking what you need, because it's just not a self-help situation.
Right.
So, we look at these things and we say, oh, okay. So, sometimes we just can't see, or we can't identify, or we can't articulate how, what those supports are. We can't articulate what those tools are. We just know that something worked well this week, right? Like, I don't know why. And I don't ask myself why, and I don't dig deeper for the answers and all of these things. So I love that you can identify how you got here and what you're going to do from this point going forward to continue, cultivating, growing, and adding, and all the things. That's amazing. If I was to ask you, because we're getting to about the last 10 minutes, because life happens and I have to cut it a little bit short today. But if I was to ask you, or if you were to share, let's say the top 3, because you had 3 things that you knew got you here, but what are the top 3 things that you feel helped you get started and even taking that step to on a spiritual level, on a professional level, and on a developmental level, take those steps? Like, how did you say, I'm going to take this first step? How did you get past that fear or uncertainty?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it got to a point where my situation, and the thought of being in my situation 10 years from now, 5 years from now, scared me so much more than the act of just changing and just facing them. And you know what? This is what I think I need to start transitioning. So let me just take the first step. But the thought of being in the same spot and not progressing, scared me, freaked me out even more than it did progressing. I got to a point where I remember my deepest, or my biggest episode of anxiety and depression was July 2018. And I didn't tell anybody. I kept it to myself because that's when my cousin's attempted suicide was going on. And I was like, I don't want to pull the attention away from him and put it on me. And it just all overwhelming. And I got so in my head that it just, the consequences were having an effect on me physically. And I wasn't sleeping, and then anxiety came in, and it was just inner emotional turmoil. And here I am trying to be altruistic and selfless, and not bring my family into my personal drama, but I'm still taking it out on them. And it ruined my relationships with my siblings. We weren't as close, and I was always angry, and I was always bitter. And I started to realize that I was losing friends left and right. And I took it out on them. I thought it was all external, like everybody hates me. Why is the world so against me? And then I realized if it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, if all this trauma and all of these bad clouds and negative energy keep following me in multiple different sectors of my life, it must be something that has to do with me. And it took getting down to, rock bottom and facing the mirror, and, because it's so easy to blame everything outside of you. And finally seeing no, this is me. This is how I've been dealing with, my consequences. And, I didn't force anybody to act like this on me. I'm doing this to myself. And I was like, I can't be like this even in another 2 years, let alone 10 years. I can't be in the same position where I'm too paralyzed and I'm too scared to make any move. And I constantly overthink, and I'm bitter, and I'm angry all the time, and I'm sad, and I'm taking it out on other people. I lost myself. I lost who I was. And I wanted to get back to the Jordan that I knew and loved, the Jordan that got me to where I was, and the Jordan that kind of helped me see my way through it. But it's like, okay, something's got to change. Something's got to give now. And yeah, that was step 1. That was looking in the mirror.
Wow. I am just blown away. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the message that I hear, because clearly so many people, or people that listen to this and hear all of your passion, are going to see that, okay, it might be scary, but I'm going to be okay. Right. Like, and it's not going to fix itself just because I made that fearful step.
Right.
But without momentum, without a forward moving motion, I'm certainly going to go nowhere. And I'm going to wake up and it's going to be 10 years from now, and I'm still going to be stuck in this hell. I'm also not going to have the relationships there because they're not going to stick around. So I can either take that scary first step, and you don't have to do it by yourself. You can call Jordan, you can call me, but you don't have to take it by yourself, but take that scary first step, which I guess could be construed as just that phone call. But, and then that actually puts things in motion. It allows you to go, okay, I'm here. You can stay on that first step as long as you need to, as long as your intention is to go to the next one and the next one and the next one, just like we talk about in the coursework. Like, you know what? Some people need to stay in module 3 for 2 weeks, and some people, you know what? It's breezy through module 6. And when they get to 7, it's like all about distress tolerance. And they're like, oh, we're going to sit here for a minute. Right. Like, I need to do this super slow because I have so many areas, but it's all at your pace. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say is you're going to be stuck, and there's going to be zero pace. There's going to be no movement, no change, unless you start the momentum, right? And I think one of my favorite sayings is, we don't change when things are easy.
Right.
We change when we face our challenges, right?
Yeah.
So, and fear of the unknown is really fear of change, which is really just the fear of learning something new. Right. And so when we can look at those things in like a pretty simplistic form and apply it to anything, like, what am I so afraid of? It might be a little bit of change, but it's really just learning something new. Okay. Like I learned to walk at one point. If I have to learn to walk a different way, okay, got this, right? Like, it's not that simple, but it can be, you get to choose how hard or easy it can be on a cognitive level. Like, it's going to be a long process, but it's not going to be hard. It's going to be super hard, and I'm going to have to work really hard, and it's going to take a long time. Feels completely different. So it's all about again, that internal dialogue.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely. It's definitely not a, upward. There's a lot of these guys going around. But I think it's the comfort of knowing that you're going to be okay. And then the faith that you have in seeing what you could potentially become, the faith of what's better for me, the faith of, okay, this role might be the best role that I'm about to step into. And that optimism and that self-talk. And I love the comments that you make in group where it's, how do I want people to perceive me? How do I want to be received in this world? How do I want people to perceive me? And I knew in that place where I was, I hated how I was being perceived by everyone, including myself. So I wanted to get to a point where, this is how I want people to perceive me. I want people to not think I'm reactive and not think that I have attitude all the time and not think that I am just bitter and angry. Like, this is how I want people to perceive me, or not think that I'm just, waking up every morning like a robot, not addressing any of my feelings. That's not beneficial either, So I wanted people to be able to empathize and sympathize with me and hear my story. And, hopefully inspire somebody to make some shifts in their own life. But it's not a slope. It's a
up and down and all around.
Yeah, up and down.
Right?
But it's so worth it in my opinion. In my experience, it's so worth it.
Well, I know that I think it would be truly spectacular so that people feel very invited
Yeah.
In the comments, if you could put your affiliate link, your phone number, your email, contact information that you're comfortable, drop it in the comments on the Facebook page so that everybody can just see that as they're finishing up listening here, so that they feel, so they know how to find you and get connected with you, because I truly believe that you know, people are going to gravitate to what speaks their language. Everybody knows how to find me, but they may want to have a little bit more one-on-one time with you, or ask you some specific questions, or seek your guidance, or your thoughts or opinions. So if you could do that, I think that would be amazing. I also look forward to our next time that you come in, because we will have more specific topics that we want to come to the table and talk about. But for now, I'm just so appreciative that you hop in here with me for your first debut, and that you're here. And I can't think of a better advocate and an affiliate to have on my team. I'm super excited.
Me too.
Do you have any parting words?
Just, I'm an open book, much like Tricia. So definitely, I'd love to answer any questions. I'd love to share any more about my story, about my journey. And that I hope that people are receptive to this, because it's only going to go as far if you're willing to let it. It's only going to take you where you want to go if you're willing to let it take you there. So just being as open-minded as possibly as you can, as being as receptive as you can. And that's when, you'll start to see some changes. But yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yay. Hey, Jordan, don't hang up just yet. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the live stream, and then we'll wrap up. And anyway, thanks everybody. Thank you for coming back. Thanks for being patient with my break in life for the last 3 weeks. Totally appreciate you. And we will see you next week. Back soon.